David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another Q&A. It's been a while since I did my last one of these, maybe about 10 months. Every time I do one of these, I say to myself that I should do them a little bit more often. I do have a fair number of giveaways coming up, and Q&A questions are always an easy way for folks to enter. So maybe I won't wait 10 months for the next one of these. On a personal note, things are going well. I am fortunate enough to still be able to work from home, and I am grateful for that opportunity. I've found that over the last year plus, I've actually been more productive. There are fewer distractions, and I tend to work longer hours since I'm not having to spend part of my day commuting to and from the office. The one downside is that the room here that I record in is my home office. When I'm home, this is kind of where I hang out most of the time. I have a couple of computers here, a TV on the wall, and all my pen stuff kind of around the room. But now it's also the place where I spend all day at my work. My work battle station is set up on a desk behind the camera. So I spend all day at work at the desk over there, and then most of the evening here at the desk here behind me. I end up spending the majority of my time in this one single room of the house. I find myself having to make it a point to get out of this one room every once in a while. Okay, thanks for all the questions that you submitted. There were a lot of interesting and creative questions, and I have about 20 here that I was going to go over. Some with longer answers and some with shorter ones. So let's get started. A number of questions were regarding my favorite inks. A while back, I did post a video called the 10 Ink Challenge. I'll put a link to it in the notes below. In that video, I posed the question, if you could only have 10 inks, what would they be? It was a fun exercise. I think for me, it broke down to something like 3 blues, a brown, a purple, a red, an orange, a green, a black, and a blue-black. If you haven't seen it, I won't ruin the surprise as to what inks were actually making the list. You can see that for yourself. Let's see here. Then the next question is from 3C Matter, who says, what is your favorite U.S. pen show? My schedule for the last 5 years or so has been to go to 3 different shows. The Triangle show, since it's very close to where I live, and then Atlanta and DC. While DC is the largest of the 3 shows, I'd have to say that the one I look forward to attending the most each year is Atlanta. It's a bit more laid back. It's a decent sized show, and it's very well attended. The Pen Addict has a live podcast one evening, which is always really fun as well. This year, there will be a Triangle show in June, and then there's going to be a DC show in August as well. But I'm not sure when I'm going to actually feel comfortable enough to go to a show again. I do really miss hanging out with everyone and hope that things get back to normal soon. Okay, the next question is from Nick Aguero, and he asked, or she asked, what are some of your favorite bands or songs or albums? You know what? I enjoy a wide variety of music. I love classic rock bands like Rush and AC/DC and Cheap Trick, but I also love things like Radiohead and British post-punk bands like The Undertones and Buzzcocks, Stiff Little Fingers, things like that. I enjoy Sufjan Stevens. I'm a big fan of the Icelandic group Sigur Rós. And the last concert that I saw was the Pixies. I enjoy everything from Beastie Boys to Ben Folds. I could probably name 50 bands that I love, too many to mention. One of my favorite bands of all time is Rocket from the Crypt. In fact, in my master bath water closet, I have one of my prized possessions, which is a signed poster by all of the members of the band. My artistic tastes don't quite align with the rest of the household. For some reason, they don't want to look at a big scorpion. So my favorite art has been relegated to the bathroom, as well as my office at work, where I have some of my most prized art. Now, it's been over a year since I've been going into work, so I haven't seen a lot of my favorite art in a long time. I think I might need to go in and actually bring some of that art home so I can enjoy it here. But in regard to music, I am always looking for something new and interesting to listen to. Speaking of music, there were a number of questions about how my guitar playing was coming along that I shared in my last Q&A. Well, I would love to report back that I have progressed. I hate to say it, but I have not. I have not dedicated as much time as necessary to improve my skills. no excuses. I just need to dedicate the time to getting better, and I haven't. But the guitar is sitting out in the open over there, and it's mocking me every day that I don't pick it up. I do really want to get back to it. I enjoyed myself when I was learning, and I need to get back to it. I'm not going to say that I'm too busy. That's just an excuse. If you really want to do something, then you're going to find the time to do it. But yes, I need to get back to that. David asked, do you think you'll do any more interview videos when that becomes feasible again? The short answer is yes. There are a number of interviews that I've been working on for quite some time. The situation we are living in now has put a kibosh on that type of thing. While I could potentially do some things via Zoom, part of the fun is for me to meet someone in person and hang out with them for a little bit rather than just a video conference call. I don't want to jinx any of them by saying who they might be. Some might be of folks who you are very familiar with, and others might be from people that you're not that familiar with. We'll see what happens once the world is no longer on fire. Whenever I do these Q&As, I always get questions about the Neil deGrasse Tyson interview. I've answered most of those questions previously, but I thought I'd share a story that I don't believe I've told anywhere else previously. So the interview is over, and I packed up all of my equipment, and I'm heading for the elevator. I get in the elevator with a family. It was like a mom and a dad and a daughter, and then manning the elevator was a museum employee, a young man, probably in his mid-20s. The employee greeted us as we entered, and he had a bit of an Eastern European accent. And the dad of the family asked the young man where he's originally from. And the employee replies that he was from Transylvania. The dad's jaw just dropped, and he suddenly had a stunned and fearful look on his face. He looked at the young man and in a trembling voice asked, "Is it true about the vampires?" I thought he might be kidding, but no, he was dead serious. He needed to know if the tales of vampires in Transylvania were true. The employee just kind of chuckled and said, no, those are just stories. And the dad said, "Oh, that's good to hear." But by the look in his eyes, I think he was thinking to himself, that's exactly what a vampire would say. So I don't think he really believed the guy, but I thought that was something funny that happened on the way out of the building. The next question is from FIFA Bros 855 and says, do you plan on visiting New York City again? Yes, I do. I love visiting New York. I like visiting places which are distinct. When you are in New York, you know that you're in New York. There's a feel and a vibe to the city. Same with places like Chicago or San Francisco or Southern California, which are some of my other favorite places to visit. But yes, I try to make it up to New York every couple of years, and I will make it back in the future. Piano and Pens asked, what does your family say about your fountain pen collection? Does anyone ever ask to borrow a pen? My family could not care less about my hobby. No one else in the house is interested in pens at all. There are things that everyone in the house enjoys, and we have our own individual interests. I would categorize pens as an individual interest. Like I said, no one else in the house really cares. Would I like it if they cared a little? Sure, but that's okay. That's why I end up going to Pen Club and hanging out on Slack and going to pen shows and hanging out with like-minded folks who also enjoy the hobby. Kelly asked, how did you build the confidence to start making interesting videos? Kelly, at first I didn't have the confidence. I really debated about making videos. I have a lot of public speaking experience, and so that part didn't necessarily intimidate me. Speaking in front of an audience was something that I'm really used to doing. If you told me there were 10,000 people on the other side of my office door waiting for me to speak, then pretty much my only question is okay, what do you want me to talk about, and how long do you want me to talk? But that type of confidence typically is developed through practice and experience. It's almost more unnerving to speak to a group of 5 people than it is to speak in front of 5,000. I had a background in video production as well, so that aspect of creating content didn't intimidate me either. The main thing I lacked confidence in was the topic. I used to keep a pen journal. Whenever I would purchase a pen, I would write down my feelings in these little A5 Tomoe River notebooks. And after doing that for a while, I thought about taking the next step and potentially creating a blog or a YouTube channel. But my main obstacle was overcoming the thought that no one would want to listen to me, and what could I bring to the table that isn't currently out there? And I actually wrote down a bunch of pros and cons about creating content and what I wanted to accomplish. And in the end, I actually decided against it. But then I received some words of encouragement and decided to give it a shot, and worked hard to create content that I was proud of. And something that I think could be informational as well as entertaining for others as well. In the beginning, I feel that, you need to make content for yourself. Don't worry about anybody else. Make the best content that you can make and don't care if anyone is watching. If your content is good, then people are going to find you. A while back, I did post a video called So You Want to Be a Content Creator. I'll put a link to it in the notes below. If you are considering creating content on your own, not just fountain pen content, but just anything at all, it might be something that you could find useful and encouraging in your content creation journey. Okay, I had several questions about shirts and cubes. I think I've answered some of these before, but I'll answer them again. It's been a while. Yes, I tend to wear a lot of golf shirts. This one is from Pebble Beach. The golf shirts I wear are all from courses which I have been fortunate enough to play, except for one. I have a couple of shirts from Augusta National. I haven't had the opportunity to play that course yet. I did attend the Masters one year, and being able to walk around that course was a surreal and magical experience. It truly is an amazing and beautiful place. Okay, come on. Someone who is a member of the club there at Augusta must be into fountain pens. There has to be someone. I would trade you a very nice pen for an invitation to play your spectacular course. And I wouldn't even mention it on this channel or social media. It could just be our little secret. My email address is in the notes below the video, and I'll be waiting to hear from you. My favorite course I've played on a regular basis is called Tobacco Road here in North Carolina. It is a very polarizing course. You will either have tons of fun or you will never want to see that course again. I think it's a lot of fun. Torrey Pines in San Diego is also one of my favorite courses I've played a lot. In regard to my favorite of all time, I've been fortunate enough to have played the old course at St. Andrews, and the overall experience was fantastic. If you ever have the chance to play it, it was worth every penny. Post-production David here. I neglected to answer the portion of the question about the cubes. There are times when the cubes have meaning. I might make a flag out of the country of origin for the pen I'm reviewing, or it might relate to the pen in other ways. In the past, I've hidden messages in the cubes that you have to go back later and find. Most of the time, it's just a random arrangement, something just a little bit different to break up the monotony of the background. Okay. Bob Berry asked, when you decide which pens to review, how often do you reach out to the manufacturer and distributors, and how frequently do they contact you? It can vary. I've been doing this going on 6 years now, and in that time, I have coordinated and worked with 90 different retailers, distributors, and companies. Building that number of professional relationships is something that I've been proud of. Sometimes companies will contact me when they have something new coming out, or I'll coordinate with them. When possible, I like to try to receive new items before they're available to the market, so I have time to produce a review and post it right when it goes on sale. And I've been fortunate enough to develop enough strong working relationships where that can happen. There are other times when I see that something's coming out and I have enough contacts that for the most part I can get my hands on, in one way or another, just about anything out there. Or I might reach out to a company to establish a relationships, and companies reach out to me as well. These relationships are very symbiotic. They help provide me with content that I could provide to you, and in turn, the products receive some additional exposure. A channel like this would be very difficult to sustain if I had to purchase every pen that you see. So I value the fact that, for example, someone will lend me a $4,000 pen like the Auto Hut Design C I recently reviewed. Someone else asked about my review backlog and how I manage that. That's something which can vary as well. It's something I try to manage because if someone loans me a pen for review, then I don't want to be holding on to it for 6 months before I get around to it. If someone provides me with an item, I try to turn it around in maybe 30 to 45 days or so. But I generally have 6 to 7 pens in my queue that are outside of my personal collection waiting to be reviewed. Sometimes more, sometimes less. I still have lots of pens in my personal collection that I haven't gotten around to reviewing yet. Maybe in the near future, I'll save a slot for something out of my collection and conduct a poll so that folks can determine what gets reviewed. I've done that before. I honestly have maybe about 40 or 45 pens in my collection I would consider reviewing. So between that and everything new coming in, I have content to last a while. David asked, are there any pens which you have been provided for giveaway that you liked so much later that you bought it yourself? Also, are there any video games coming out catching your eye? Yes, there have been several that were provided or given to me on loan or for giveaway that I ended up purchasing myself. Recently, I reviewed a pen from Kasama, and subsequently, I went out and purchased one for myself. One of the pens from Matthew Martin stayed with me. I mentioned that in the video. The Visconti Homo sapiens Magma was another one I reviewed and I purchased myself. There's been others. In regard to video games, I am a big fan of Diablo, the whole Diablo series, but I play a lot of Diablo 3. So I am looking forward to the Diablo 2 remaster as well as Diablo 4 when it eventually comes out. I'm not sure exactly when that is. I was really excited for Cyberpunk 2077, but that anticipation was quickly quelled when the disaster of a launching happened. I did purchase it on day one, and I've played it a little bit, but I've kind of decided to wait a little bit for a few patches to come out before diving headfirst into that game again. They have come out with a few significant patches recently, so I need to get back to playing that. Let's see. Jen asked, if you were a Force user in the Star Wars universe, what color would your lightsaber be? Blue is my favorite color, but it's also one of the most common lightsaber colors. Anakin, Luke, and even Obi-Wan wielded blue lightsabers, I believe. But I would want my blue lightsaber to be a Konpeki blue, maybe with a bit of sheen around the edges. Jacob asked, how did you feel about the Padres' first no-hitter? Okay, this was big. I am a lifelong, long-suffering Padres fan, and while the team has had a handful of quality seasons in its history, the vast majority of the 50-plus seasons they've been in existence have been forgettable. It is a very exciting time to be a Padre fan because they have put together a very exciting, high-quality team that is built to compete on the highest level for a number of years. Over the next few seasons, they have a team that has a legitimate shot to win it all. That being said, in the history of Major League Baseball, the Padres were the only active team who had never thrown a no-hitter. A couple of weeks ago, one of their pitchers, Joe Musgrave, finally threw one. On top of that, Joe is a hometown kid. He grew up in the area. He had season tickets to the Padres growing up. It was his dream to play for the team. So his achievement was very cathartic for everyone. It was like a big weight was lifted off the entire city. And I definitely had tears in my eyes after the final out. Musgrove's parents own a coffee shop in Alpine, a small town just outside of San Diego, and it became a kind of a pilgrimage for folks to drive out there to celebrate his achievement. Cars were lined up around the block just to get a cup of coffee. For a fan base that has not had much to cheer about for so long, it was very emotional. Within a few days, they had already painted a huge mural of Musgrove at his old high school in El Cajon. The team with the most no-hitters has 26, and that's a lot more than our one, but now we have one, and it was well worth the wait. Now we just need to go out and win a World Series. We have never won one of those, so we need to cross that off the list next as well. If I teared up after a no-hitter, I will probably be bawling when the day finally comes that they win the championship. Okay, Jacob asked, no, it was Paul asked, excuse me, what has been your best customer service experience with a pen manufacturer or maker? You know what? It was very early on. I've had a lot of good experiences, but it was early on in my pen journey, long before I had this channel, and I had placed an order with Anderson Pens. I purchased a pen. I think it was a Kaweco Sport, and then I also purchased a standard international converter that I needed for a different pen. I actually received a call from Lisa Anderson because they wanted to make sure that I wasn't ordering that converter for the Kaweco because it wouldn't work with that pen. It just took 2 minutes, but it was nice that they wanted to make sure I was ordering something correct and I was ordering the right thing rather than receiving it and being upset or disappointed. I assured her that I was using the converter for a different pen, but I appreciated the call. There's a number of really great fountain pen retailers, and from my personal experience, I would definitely add Anderson Pens to that group. And on the other side of that, there are a couple of retailers that I haven't had great buying experiences with, and they have not earned my return business. The ones that I've had poor experiences with, I would categorize as smaller online retailers that you may or may not have heard of. We don't need to talk about them, though. The next question was from Skeledota, which is, have you ever cracked a resin or plastic pen? I have, and it was one of my absolute favorite pens as well. It is my Sailor King of Pen Pro Gear Sky. I don't know how it happened either, but a couple of months ago, I went to use it and noticed a large crack on the back of the cap. I was very concerned that I would not be able to get it fixed. It was a limited edition that was no longer available. So I was uncertain if Sailor would even have the parts to fix it. What you need to do in order to get a Sailor fixed is that they ask you actually work through the retailer where you purchased the pen. I purchased this one through the Fountain Pen Hospital in New York City. So I had to send it to New York, and the Fountain Pen Hospital needed to look through their records and find the record of the transaction because Sailor requires that in order to do the repair, in order to see if it's still under warranty. I'm glad that the Fountain Pen Hospital keeps good records because they were able to find the transaction. And I didn't purchase it online either. I purchased it on a visit to the store over 4 years ago. They sent the pen off to Atoya, who is the U.S. distributor for Sailor, who in turn sent it off to Japan for evaluation. After a couple of months, they notified me that it could be fixed for a price, which I paid. It was a bit steep, but since it's one of my favorite pens in my collection, I didn't have much choice. I needed to get it fixed. Okay, that was a bit of a long story, but the lesson is be careful with your pens, especially your expensive ones. I've been told that it's fixed, but it's not quite back to me yet, but I will be glad when I have it back in my possession. Martin asked, who is your favorite author? I'd have to say either David Sedaris or Sarah Vowell. Sedaris is one of the funniest storytellers in my opinion, and Vowell does an amazing job bringing historical nonfiction to life. I'd highly recommend just about anything from either of those authors. Randy asked, I'm a newbie. I often hear you talk about eyedropping. What is that exactly? Okay, Randy. Fountain pens come with a number of different types of filling systems. Some are piston fillers or vacuum fillers, but the most common is a cartridge converter. I have one here. This is a pen I recently reviewed called the Gravitas Skittles. It's nice and colorful, but you can see in here that there is a converter which holds the ink. Now, if you remove the converter and fill up the barrel with ink, then the pen will still write just fine. And in doing that, you could hold a significant amount of ink. Okay, let me show you a pen where that can be done. This is a Franklin Christoph Model 66, which you could very easily convert to an eyedropper. Now you have to forgive it. First of all, it's a little bit dirty. I need to do a complete cleaning on this pen, but I have literally kept this pen inked up for probably about 5 years, and I need to give it a deep cleaning. But you could put a converter in there but then you could see the converter. But you can see here that there's a lot of space in here. And if you can unscrew the section. If you apply the appropriate amount of silicone grease to these areas, and let's see if I could do this carefully. I have a little eyedropper here and some Franklin Christoph Terra Firma ink. And let's just go ahead and fill that up here. We'll just give it one fill. And I still have enough silicone grease on here. And let me just, I dripped a tiny bit. There you go. And now you can see the ink sloshing around in the barrel. It holds a lot more ink, and there's certain pens that are just made to be eyedroppered. If there is any exposed metal in the barrel or the section, that might have an adverse reaction to the ink, so it's not recommended that you do it in those situations. You also want to watch out for the structural integrity of the pen. The barrel might not be in one piece. It might not be airtight. If you have a question whether or not your pen will work or not, you could always just fill it up with water to see if it leaks. I have a tendency to take off the barrel and blow in it to see if any air leaks out. But it also helps to apply, like I said, the right amount of silicone grease to the section and the threads in order to maintain a decent seal there to prevent leakage. Some pens also include an O-ring in there to help with that seal as well. Okay. Orsi asked, which video would you remake and why? That would be my day at the Goulet video where I detailed my visit to the company. There was nothing wrong with the content of the video, but the production quality was very poor on my end, not up to my usual standards. I needed to refer to something in that video recently, so I had to watch part of it the other day, and yeah, the quality of, we'll say the in-studio portion was rather embarrassing. Not my best effort. So yes, I would like to do that one over again. Matthias asked, what are your top 3 videos you made that people should definitely watch? You know what? I actually came up with a list of 5 videos, and each were not reviews of specific pens. So in no particular order, making custom pens with Jonathan Brooks, where he showed me how to create some custom resin, and we created some pens from it. That was really unique and lots of fun. There was my Rubik's Cube mosaic project from a couple of years ago that was really, really fun as well. Of course, the interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Then I had one called Pen Show 101 I thought turned out really well, that has a lot of really good info if you're looking to attend a pen show. And finally, I mentioned it earlier, the So You Want to Be a Content Creator video turned out really nice. And you know what, even though I really wasn't pleased with the Day at Goulet video, the content itself was interesting. So you should check that out if you want to get a closer look at the Goulet operations. I'll go ahead and put a link to each of those videos in the notes below if you'd care to check them out. Abdallah asked, Sailor 911 or Platinum Century 3776? You know what? I personally prefer the Sailor. While I care for a lot of their designs, the Platinum nibs really haven't always been my personal favorites. And then finally, Vinay asked, what should traditional fountain pen brands like Parker need to do in order to stay relevant in the fountain pen industry? Are you in favor of relaunches of classic fountain pen models like the recent one of the Parker 51? You know, I do think that with some of these brands like Parker and to a lesser extent Cross, they're going to need to go for, they're basically going for a different market. They tend to focus on the gift market rather than the collector market. If you know nothing about pens and you have to give someone a graduation gift or something like that, and you want to get them a pen as a gift, you're probably going to know about 3 brands. You're going to know about Mont Blanc, Parker, and Cross. You probably take a look at the price of a Mont Blanc, and then you move on to the Parker and Cross. If you want to watch my recent review of the new Parker 51 release, I made it clear that I felt that pen was an extreme disappointment. Poor decisions were made in just about every aspect of that pen, and it was really sad to see, since the pen was so beloved. It would be really nice to see if Parker put more of their efforts into developing new models. Their modern Duofold Centennial Big Red is an outstanding pen, and I love it. They got everything right with that updated model. It was just sad to see them get everything wrong with the 51. But it would be cool to see something brand new from Parker that appeals to the enthusiast and collector market. After all, my last name is Parker, and I would love to see them become more relevant again in the fountain pen world. Okay, I think that just about does it for Q&A. Like I said, I might try to get to these a little bit more often, or who knows, maybe it'll be another year before the next one. We'll see. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.